The Fresh Economic Thinking Podcast. New ideas and analysis with Dr. Cameron Murray and Jonathan Gadir. G'day, Cameron. How you going?
Good, Jonathan. Nice to be talking again.
I noticed earlier this week that the super industry seems to be on the campaign path. There was a spokesperson for what seems to be a new lobby group, the Super Members Council, on ABC News Radio that I listened to in the morning. And I thought, oh, this is something we should talk about. And, you ended up having a look at their website and their campaign points. And from Twitter, I gather you weren't that impressed.
Yeah, you're right. You've noticed this new super lobbying. There seems to be a resurgence everywhere, doesn't there?
Yeah.
No,
with very prominent ex-Labor Party people involved.
Yeah, that's right. So this Super Members Council popped up, I think, earlier this year, and I was just basically saying all this nonsense that I've been fighting against for years. And so I subscribed to their newsletter. So every week I get this stuff in my inbox. So I was onto their campaign before you noticed on the radio. But I don't know, what was your impression of that interview? Because I thought there was a lot of nonsense talk in the campaign.
The main focus at the beginning was on people that are not getting their super. So employers in certain sectors are being dodgy and not paying what their legal obligations are, and how that affects sort of the lower paid people especially. I thought, well, okay, that's a fair point. But then they went on to talk about a bunch of other stuff that I thought, well, maybe this is material for Cameron to address.
Yeah, well, it's funny, right?
Go.
I went through, line by line their thing, but I think it's quite interesting.
So you went through the website.
Yeah, so they've got this website up now, this new super lobby group, and their campaign, it's called How Super Works, and their campaign is titled "Why Talk About Super?" Like, super works in the background, but we need to bring it to the foreground and all talk about how great it is all the time, right?
Right.
And so it's, we can do that. I'd love to talk about it because I think there's a lot of mythology and blatant lies out there. And unfortunately, unexpectedly, this Super Members Council is just adding to the nonsense. So why don't we do what they say and talk about it, hey?
All right, so let's do the first point first. Okay, first, there's a happy smiling guy in a suit jacket. It says, "Super makes me feel relieved." The first point is super is not part of your wage. It's paid by your employer on top of your wage.
Yeah,
and your response was,
what did I say? Basically, wrong.
You said wrong.
Wrong. It's funny how they've got all these list of points that they want us to talk about, and they've got a little shareable, social media square-shaped image with little quotes and graphs and smiling people. And their first one is super is this bonus, and yet they were just on the radio saying, "Oh, people actually aren't getting this," right? So it's kind of funny. They're trying to sort of have their cake and eat it here as well. They're saying, it's something extra, it's something magical. But when people say that to me, I push back and go, oh, so part of what your employer pays that you don't get to keep is extra? So does that mean income tax is extra? It's actually not coming out of your wage, it's just extra? And we can just put up income taxes and your employer will pay it, right? Because they're actually paying you the net amount and everything else is just extra from your employer. Now, that's completely wrong, right? Because for the employer, the total price of employing you is everything all in, right? And we know that super is your wage because we can turn it into your wage 100% by just letting people spend out of their super account. And then 100% of it is your wages. So even if you think, oh, we can somehow trick people into paying you more if it's called super. Well, you can also trick people into paying you more and being able to spend it today as well by just calling it super, but letting us spend out of your super. So yeah, that's complete nonsense. I mean, should there be truth in advertising here for these lobby groups? Or are they going to go on a technicality that, on top of means this, wage means some special definition of net, what you get in your bank net? And I'm like, oh, so by your definition, taxes are paid on top of your wage, right? Income
Mhm.
taxes are just bonus. It's just a bonus. Yeah, so that's
Okay,
point one. It's not a
that's
good
one.
start,
That's
is
point
it?
one. Okay, the next point. Super is set aside for retirement to support you in retirement.
Yeah, well, I mean, is it? Because super you can access at age 60, right? And the pension you can get at 67. And so there's a huge incentive. There's a financial advice industry designed to work out how to take all your super at age 60, spend it all, hide it all, and get the age pension at 67. So it's a pretty funny thing. And I think what's more interesting on this point is that retirees, we always forget this. We have a completely backwards view of how the world works on this point. We think that retirees are these impoverished elderly people who need lots more money than they have to support just a meager existence. Wrong again. Do you know who's poor and having a meager existence? Young families who work, who support a household of four or five or more, um, who don't own their own home. They're in financial stress. So we've got this complete weird thing that we're taking money when we're poor and working and supporting kids and have our higher spending needs and putting it aside. So when we're rich old people who do own our homes, we've got more money. Makes no sense. It's
Hmm.
completely backwards.
I understand what you're saying, and I understand, it's based on, you're making some statements there based on, some average picture of the world. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I just want to push you a bit on this. Like, it is the case, like there is, when they say the super lobby that um, nobody wants to be old and just relying on the age pension because it's not a good life, it's not much money. They have a point, right? That's true. I know that. Um, so, and that's a
Compared
very
to what?
powerful
Compared to
point.
what?
Well, yeah,
I
it's not a good life, right? You can't afford
don't
to
know. I
go
mean,
out to have
if you're
dinner,
paying
more than,
if you're paying 40,000 of your after tax income to rent in Sydney, let's say your household gets 180 to 100 in after tax income, and you got five people to support, you after you pay your rent have left over 50 or $60,000 to support five people, and a
Okay, but
pensioner
like there
gets
are groups of
$28,000
pensioners. Mm.
to
There
support
are
one
groups of old
person.
people. There are, well, okay, but it's still not a good life. It's not a good life for an older person, especially if they, ha- they're well, low income to begin with, like they don't have savings, um,
Yeah, that's right.
and yeah, so
So, but the
like
thing is,
that's
if
what
you're
they're
low
tapping
income
into.
through your lifetime, yeah, they're tapping into that sort of vibe. But if you're low income during your life, right, then you're much, much worse off when you're younger. A low income working family is much, much worse off than a pensioner, right?
I don't dispute that. I don't want to dispute that, but I just, there is a sense that when you're older, you're deserving of respect and of dignity, and the age pension doesn't seem to give that lifestyle of respect and dignity. Like, and of course, that's a
Yeah.
problem for governments. They're not willing to spend on a better, more generous age pension. But I think until you can like I think we like until you address this point, like their arguments remain attractive. Like a middle-aged person thinks about that old person they see in the supermarket counting their pennies, paying for some very cheap
Hmm.
groceries because they can't afford anything else and
Hmm.
living in maybe in a very small flat or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a powerful point. Like they're
It's a
thinking,
powerful
okay, at least
imagery.
I'm
I'll
going to
give you
have
that.
my super to help me because the age pension's shit.
Yeah. Look, I can see some people think that, but if all the elderly people I know absolutely love the age pension. Like it is the most loved thing. So the idea that it's shit, but also everyone wants it. It's the greatest thing ever. Like my mother-in-law just couldn't wait to age into the age pension because she was on a widow's pension, which is half as much, right? And she's like, great, I'm going to get twice as much money now. I'll be on the age pension. So instead of us supporting her, she's had this boon of this age pension. And lots of old people say, "Oh, I've got too much money. I won't get the age pension. Got to get rid of some money." you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
So I just think, yeah, there's this weird perception. Um, as I said, we've got this idea in our mind that there's the elderly person at the supermarket counting their pennies. My granddad used to count his pennies out, and he was a rich bugger. You would have seen him at the supermarket counting his pennies. It's just because he grew up in the Depression. He had heaps of money.
Some things, okay. Every time I come up, like I come out with the poor pensioner at the supermarket, you come out with the old people I know like this. Okay, well, you know some old people who are rich, and I know some old people who are poor. Well,
Yeah, fair enough.
we're just a battle of anecdotes here, but essentially, it's a
So,
fair point to say the age pension should be more, but I think it's unlikely that it's going to be more because governments are the way they are and they waste money on submarines that don't work and that we don't need, and they refuse to do economically
yeah,
just just
maybe.
things.
I mean, I think bang for your buck wise, increasing the age pension versus increasing other family benefits, or it's not obvious to me that it is the first best thing to do. But I'm pretty much pro, generous benefits all round. so,
Okay,
so I'm
you're
not
pro
going to
generous
argue.
benefits all around. Okay.
I'm not going to
Okay,
argue
so
we
but
should
what's the
cut
what's
the
the
age
argument?
pension.
What's the
Yeah.
argument about these people are saying? What's the argument against what these people are saying that, hey, you'll have both. You'll have a bit of the age
Oh,
pension. You have this to
yeah, yeah.
boost
Well,
your.
here's the thing, right? They're basically saying you have a choice with your wage whether to save it for retirement or not, right? Now, if you are a low wage person, you are better off spending all your wage today and getting the pension, right? So if you already have a buffer, then you can save. And if you do, you will do it voluntarily, as most people did before the age pension. So it doesn't sort of redistribute to those who need it. It only takes from those who don't have when they're working to give them when they have when they're retiring. If that's a more clear way to articulate that point.
Okay. So in essence, you're saying the whole system is based on a false sort of patronizing idea of that people just, um,
Yeah.
don't plan and can't plan because they're too
Yeah, that
dumb
we
or
can't
whatever.
make our own decisions on how to spend our money. And this is, to try and dig down one more point. We have this idea that women um, uh, are not as well off in super as men because they take time off to have children and so they don't work as much. But that's kind of the point. That's why the age pension redistributes amongst people, not just amongst yourself from one point in time to another. And that's where the beauty of the pension is, right? It ensures it shares, it socializes the risk, whereas super can't do that. So if you don't earn during your working life, it can't help you. If you get injured or disabled, it can't help you. But you know what can? The pension.
Mm. Yep. Next
Anyway,
point,
yeah.
super is lightly taxed. So super, they say super, this is with their fancy graphics. Super is taxed at a lower rate than the average rate of income tax at only 15%. Undoubtedly true.
Yeah. So great. But this essentially amounts to lower taxes for higher income people who will already voluntarily save, as we just said, for retirement, even if their whole wage is taxed at regular rates, right? So we're basically saying, oh, great, we're going to give the people who don't need to have a tax advantage to save for retirement, a tax advantage to save for retirement, right? And so what you end up with is that um, people who do a lot of saving and investing and have lots of assets see the tax advantage and just literally shift money into the tax advantage structure from the non-tax advantage structure, same as various trusts and other sort of structures we have. And this just adds another one.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a reasonable critique?
Of course, like it
Great,
applies
great.
to everyone. Like you can be a
Yeah.
low income, working class person being paid super and having advantage of 15% as well.
Yeah.
Um, um,
Yeah, you can, but the proportion of the advantage is not just
Skewed.
linear
Okay.
with income. It's much more skewed than linear, right? And of course that means, so for example, when we look at the distribution of tax advantages in super, the vast majority, I think it's like 80% of the tax advantage goes to the top 20% of households by income, right?
Okay.
So who didn't weren't
Yeah.
going to be on the age pension anyway?
Okay. Next one. I love this one. Okay. Because this one I want to know more about. Next, around three-quarters of super at retirement is expected to be from compound returns. So, the heading
Oh,
is the secret of super success.
the secret, the magic sauce. I think I've called it the. I actually wrote an article on Fresh Economic Thinking. When was this? In July. It's called "Compound Interest is Not Magic." Right? We all say it is, and the subtitles of that was, "It is just other people's money in the future." And I've got a little graphic too. It says abracadabra, it's other people's money. Like I can play the lobbying game too. So yeah, let me dig down on this, right?
Yeah, you
So
need to explain like what
yes,
is interest and then what is compound interest. And
so
yeah.
compound interest is just that, you put your money in the bank, you get 5%, right? So I put $100 in, I get 5% this year, right? That's the interest. And the interest has a period where it pays out. So you get the 5% paid into your account after a year. And then you sort of reset the next period, next accounting period. Now you've got $105 and you get 5% on that, right? So now you get $5.05, right? $5.05 interest the next period. And now we've got 110.05, and then so on and so forth. And so it sort of grows faster than linearly, the value of saving, right? So this is compounding. Last year's interest adds to the sort of base that the next year's interest is calculated on. And so, this is the sort of why, savings works in general to sustain its value above inflation. But I find it really interesting, because as a whole, as an aggregate, right? The only way everyone can get compound interest is if the economy is growing, right? Because if the economy is shrinking and we've all got money in the bank that's growing exponentially, we're going to have so much more money, but less stuff to buy with it. And so you can't get a real inflation adjusted return. And I do find it interesting. We always talk about the, returns to super are, um, 7%, but the government, we can only get 3% more tax each year. But quite often, when we talk about those tax figures and those GDP figures, we're talking inflation adjusted, right? But when we talk about super, it's never inflation adjusted. So it always looks like it's growing disproportionately faster than everything else. But here's the kicker, right?
Yeah.
If the economy can grow, so we all get compound returns, do you know what else can grow? The tax base that we tax on all those compounding returns from all the investments in the economy. So, in fact, you could say, and I do, that compound, if super benefits from the magic of compound returns, so does the age pension, because we're taxing the same growing economy, and it's the growing economy that's providing compounding returns to super.
So
Does
just
that
to clarify for
clarify
a
it all?
simple-minded person such as
Yeah.
myself, so are you saying that interest is the same as growth of the economy? Like interest comes out of growth of the economy, the
I'm
interest rate?
saying the individual interest rate for any bank account or return does not. That's a result of risk taking and competition within the economy. But if we add all them up, the only way that on average, Yeah, on average across all those investments, you can make a positive compounding return is if the economy is growing.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's not the interest rate. It's just that, okay, you're invested in the share
Yeah,
market, for example, and
correct.
okay.
So you've got the share market, you've got the compounding returns because you get dividends, you can reinvest, et cetera, et cetera. That reflects the growth of the industrial production of those businesses, which is a huge chunk of the economy, right? The only reason that grows, those shareholdings, is because the economy's grown and all those businesses that are providing dividends and returns are also growing, right?
Yeah.
So that's that link. And so when we talk macroeconomically, right, interest is just other people's money in the future. The quote I have is, uh, it's funny how some people think there's no magic money tree for governments when it comes to taxation, but also think there's a magic money tree called compound interest. So
Okay.
I'm just making the point that if you think there's this magic money tree called compound interest, you have to believe that, oh, well, taxes can also compound and grow as well,
Hmm.
because
Um,
taxes are just taking a share of that.
so the next thing they say is kind of linked to this. Before compulsory super was introduced in 1992, the typical Australian worker retired with no savings. Today, the typical worker retires with around $200,000. In another 30 years, the typical worker will be retiring with about $500,000. These are life-changing sums. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, well, $500,000 in 30 years' time is not going to be worth what it's worth today, but let's just check if they've inflation adjusted this. Um, in another 30 years, the typical worker will be retiring with about $500,000 in their super fund. Yeah, I mean, they will. Typical is doing a lot of work there.
Mhm.
you know, um,
Yeah. And
I'm
most
not
people
really.
retiring today have been contributing to super for 30 years. Only by 2032 will we see people retiring with 40 years of superannuation savings.
Yeah, that's great. I'm surprised it's so low, honestly. In fact, the median of all workers the typical median retiree today doesn't have any super, right? So most retirees today don't have any super. And that's
Okay.
obviously because most retirees are a little bit older.
Yeah.
And if you look at the median balances, I think it's a couple of 100,000. Oh, they've said the
Yeah.
number,
Yeah.
a couple of
200.
hundred
Yeah.
thousand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit less for women, and it's like 160 for women and 240 for men. Yeah, now that's fine, I guess. But just remember, you can access this when you're 60 and get the pension when you're 70. It's pretty easy to spend 200 grand and then get the age pension anyway, right? So I
Hmm.
do find that a real sort of sticking point to show, well, is this meant to take people off the age pension or not? It's not really clear how it's meant to supplement the age pension, or and it also it's incentivizes retiring earlier, right? So if you can get this lump sum thing when you're 60, but otherwise you might have worked to 64 or 5, well, I'm going to just retire a couple of years earlier because of super. And now that's the opposite thing that we want, right? If you're worried about aging, you want people to work longer. That's why boosted the age pension age. Yet we're
Hmm.
still incentivizing those with lots of money to retire earlier. I find that very weird.
And this links to some of my points earlier. Will having super mean I'm ineligible for the age pension? Having super does not exclude you from the government's age pension. That's because super was never meant to replace the age pension, only supplement it. Many people will continue to receive the age pension alongside their super. Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, wow.
Um, and then by supplementing the age pension, super improves the quality of lives in retirement, of our lives in retirement. That could mean more holidays, more meals out, and more treats for the grandchildren. All right. Sounds good.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it does sound good. You can still get the age pension. I mean, come on. What was this for again? I just find it really amazing that this, in the public conversation, supers are meant to be like, oh, get people off the age pension. And then the super lobbyists go, no, 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 that's not what it is. We still want the age pension because it's so good. We want it. We're just going to have extra money. I'm like, man, you just sound like a tax advantage savings vehicle that is compulsory and is leeching off the country. But yeah, go on. Yeah, no, I just thought
And with
I was
super, the cost of the age pension remains more sustainable into the future. In fact, over time, the cost is likely to fall relative to the size of the economy. A sustainable age pension, as our population ages, means our taxes continue to be spent on other essentials like healthcare and schools. The
I
age
don't know,
pension is
mate.
one of three
Yeah.
pillars of our retirement system, along with super and personal savings outside super.
Look, I am just shocked, absolutely shocked. And I hope the listeners are as well, that the super lobby groups, one of their key points on their lobbying campaign is it's okay, you'll still get the age pension. I just think that conflicts with so many of the ideas we have about super and what it's for and how it works. So
Oh,
I don't even know what to say.
it does say some people will have enough super they won't need the age pension. It does say that.
Yeah, they will. But this is the thing, right? You've got to compare it to a world without super, where we do have high income people who love investing and saving and making lots of money. And that means that when they're older, they're going to have lots of savings and wealth and buffer stocks of, you know, bank balances to look after themselves as they always have. Like there's this idea that pre super, we were all impoverished. There were no
Mm.
wealthy people who could sustain themselves. Only with super is this true? No, that's wrong. Only with super do those who weren't impoverished, could sustain themselves, get a huge tax break. And only with super do those who need their money while they're working and they're young not get it, even though it's not going to get them off the age pension. Uh, I just see no net benefits. And it's just shocking that this is in their lobbying campaign.
There's another thing that I'm
Anyway.
shocked that's in their lobbying campaign, and it's this point. Australia has the 55th largest population, but the fourth largest super system.
Yeah.
The 2023 Mercer CFA Institute Global Pension Index, blah, 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 ranked Australia's super system fifth behind Netherlands, Iceland, Israel, and Denmark. In a 2024 letter to investors, Larry Fink, chairman of one of the world's biggest investment companies based in the US, BlackRock, profiled Australia's retirement system as a model for other modern economies. Now, I don't know
Oh my
about you,
God.
Cameron, but when the BlackRock guy says, "Oh, this is great," I'm thinking, "Uh-oh."
Alarm bells. Alarm bells. It's probably not. Yeah, I mean, why do we need the fourth largest super system if we're the 55th largest population? I mean, that seems like we've got too much wealth tied in this system. And that also means we're giving away too much tax because of the tax advantages in this system. That's what it says to me. I mean, what if we had the 100th largest population and the first largest super system? I mean, would that be better? I mean, I don't get how there's a, it sounds good, right? It's one of those things you just say and go, ooh, look at us. Like it's a gold. We nearly got a bronze medal. Ooh, we're good. I'm like, is it actually a good thing? Like if we were the smallest economy in the world, right? If we were Bhutan with 700,000 people and had the first largest super system, I mean, is that good or is that weird? Is there something wrong with our economy?
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's great for BlackRock. I'm forced to invest in his shares rather than spending it on my holiday or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
it's crazy. So,
All right.
yeah, there's one more point. Yeah, they reiterate that people retire with about 500,000. I'm going to bet money, it's a classic economic consulting trick is don't inflation adjust numbers you want to make bigger and inflation adjust numbers you want to make smaller. If you want to make a
Yeah.
number bigger, say this is the total over a decade. If you want to make it smaller, say, oh, it's only $2 a week. And if you want to make that big, it's, $10,000 over a decade. Uh, and that's what they're doing as well all the way through.
Yeah, it's because I like it's sort of something that you don't as a someone on the receiving end of a piece of advertising, it's not something that when you're driving or whatever you're thinking about. It just sounds like, sounds
Yeah,
like a good
just
number. Mm.
sounds good, right? Positive vibes. It's all vibes, not much substance there.
Mm. All right. Thanks for that. Good rant.
Yeah, thanks. Talk to you again. Bye, mate.
See ya.